Welcome everyone to the Title I Annual Family Meeting. My name is Jenny Sullivan and I am the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction here in the Southwick Talon Granville Regional School District. One of my roles here as Assistant Superintendent is I oversee the Every Student Succeeds Act grant, and Title I is one of those. And one of our requirements for receiving that grant is to meet once a year with families and talk to you about state standards, our curriculum, and ways that you can get involved in helping us make decisions about how we use our Title I funding. Joining me tonight are two of my instructional coaches. Beth Grady is my STEM instructional coach for Woodland and Powdermill, and Laura Markowicz is my literacy coach for Woodland and Powdermill, and they will be talking to you a little bit later about our literacy and our math programs at Woodland and Powdermill schools. Next slide, please, Beth. So Title I is a federal grant that we receive, and the amount of money received is based on the amount of low-income families that are served by our Title I schools. But once we are allotted a certain amount of money based on the financial needs of the families in our district, then we use that money to meet the academic needs of the students who need it in our schools that are identified as Title I. And as I mentioned before, in our districts, Woodland schools and Powdermill schools are both our Title I schools. Now, we are a school-wide Title I program, which means that every student that is in either of those two schools are eligible for receiving Title I support, so extra help in literacy and math. Title I is different from special education because it does not address student needs based on a disability or a special need, but really any student that at any time is struggling academically or not making the progress that we expect them to make is eligible to receive some additional support. Next slide, please. So every year we put together a family school compact, which you can find in your student's handbook. And the family compact is basically an agreement that outlines how you as a family members, us as school staff, and how your children as students will share responsibility for making sure that we're working hard to achieve the goals that we set forth for each other each year, and that we meet the state's high standards for academic achievement. In addition to the Family School Compact, Beth, next slide, please. We also share with families each year our family engagement protocol. We are required under the Every Student Succeeds Act to involve families as much as possible, including providing tools to help families understand the state's high standards, our assessments, and what we expect for family involvement. We also try to share best practices and resources with family on how to help their students achieve. And we also try to conduct every year, well, we do conduct every year an annual evaluation. However, we do try to involve families as much as possible in that process. So every year, at the end of the year, we look back at how we used our Title I funds. Were they effective? Do we want to continue on as we have in the past year, or do we need to make any changes? And families are always welcome to get involved in that process. We conduct that annual evaluation through our instructional leadership team, which meets monthly. Families are welcome to join the ILT every month, or if you are just interested in giving feedback on the Title I, that meeting typically happens in the first Tuesday of either May or June, and agendas are published on our website. Next slide, please, Beth. So one of the obligations under Title I is to make sure that families understand what our state standards are. So in Massachusetts, we have what are called curriculum frameworks for all of the core subjects and some non-core subjects, such as digital literacy and the arts. And the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks provide teachers, students, and families with clear and shared expectations on what all students should know and be able to do at the end of each school year. And they are designed to make all students college and career ready by the end of grade 12. There is a link here on the slide that will take you to the standards so you can browse through them and see what the expectations are for each of your child's grade level. And there are also many resources for families on the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education website that if you're interested in perusing through, I urge you to go to that link and see what's available for you as families. Next slide, please. One of the things that you'll hear us talk about a lot if you've been to any of our listening sessions and reading our newsletters is that we are really working hard to adopt high quality instructional materials for all of our core programs here at the Southwick Tallinn Granville Regional School District, and in concert with support from the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So what research has shown is that if you have standards aligned curriculum material aligned to those high rigor standards that I just spoke about, and professional learning for our teachers on how to implement those curriculum materials, then student improvement achieves comparable to over 1.5 years of additional learning, about 1.5 times the difference between an average teacher and one at the 75th percentile, and greater than the difference between a new teacher and one with 3 years experience. And we also know from research that teachers' time is better spent trying to meet the needs of the learners in front of them and preparing themselves every day to do that, rather than searching every evening or every weekend for curriculum materials that may or may not align to standards, and certainly may or may not prepare them for the grade level after the one that they're currently in. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura Markowitz. As I mentioned, Laura is our literacy coach, and she primarily works at Woodland and Powder Mill schools, and she has been very instrumental in helping us adopt our new core program. It's HMH Into Reading in those grade levels. Go ahead, Laura.
Thank you, Jenny. Hello, everyone. It's great to be with you tonight. So talking about literacy, the current literacy plan for Massachusetts is called An Excellent Education in ELA and Literacy for All. And our Southwick Tallinn Granville Regional School vision is an excellent education in English language arts, or you might hear ELA, and literacy for all students in Massachusetts, in which every student masters the rigorous standards set forth in the Massachusetts frameworks, develops a rich vocabulary and knowledge about the world, and develops the dispositions and a social emotional competencies needed to thrive in society and life. Next slide, please, Beth. And Jenny just mentioned literacy instruction at Woodland and Powder Mill schools. We are currently in our 2nd year of implementation of the Into Reading program. It is a program that we utilize in our K through 6 classrooms. It was published by Hoot and Mifflin Harcourt. Into Reading met all expectations by Ed Reports. That's a nonprofit evaluator of our instructional materials, so it got good ratings. And we are currently, and this is very exciting for our district, we are currently in our literacy initiative with the Hill for Literacy group. And they are working with our district, this is the 2nd year now, to build our educators' content knowledge around reading and literacy, and to make the instructional shifts needed to meet the needs of our current students. And we're really thinking a lot more about the science of reading and taking that knowledge that we have about it and applying it into our practices within our classrooms for our students. Next slide, please. Now with that new knowledge, we are really fine-tuning our literacy assessments as well. So you might hear your kiddos come home and saying that they did some DIBELS testing. We do that 3 times a year for all students in K through 6. DIBELS stands for Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills. And basically what this assessment measures is 3 of the 5 components of literacy, which is the phonemic awareness, your alphabetic principle like the phonics, or you might hear the code, right? And fluency with text. In addition, some students are progress monitored, which occurs at variable intervals throughout the school year, so that it kind of provides a check for students and teachers to see if the students are applying the skills that they've been working on, and then also helps the teacher and guides the teacher with next steps for instruction and really giving our students what they really need. We also 3 times a year give the iReady diagnostic tests in 4 through 6, and then beginning in grade 3, we have the MCAS, which goes through high school. So those are some of the areas that we look at. And then Jenny was also talking about our supplemental literacy intervention services that we do provide at both Woodland School and at Powder Mill School. We have 2 interventionists down at Woodland School, and we have 1 interventionist over at Powder Mill School, and I was very happy to be an interventionist for the last 17 years. So we are utilizing a program called SIPS, and thank goodness it's short in there because it's systematic instruction in phonological awareness, phonics, and sight words. It is a research-based foundational skills program used in our intervention programs, and I did attach a link if you want to see some more research and evidence around that program. But the program is very systematic, explicit, has a set scope and sequence that it follows, and the routines are focused on phonological awareness, spelling, sounds, and sight words, all those things that we were looking at with the DIBELS assessment that we give as well. And then SIPS is taught in groups. This is what makes it really unique and awesome. It's taught in groups of students with similar needs. So students are grouped according to their needs, and the teacher really, it really allows the teacher to target exactly what those students need at that time. The lessons are about 30 minutes long and are provided in addition to what is already happening in small group within the classroom with their classroom teacher. So it's just an extra dose of what the children might need. Qualification for the program, there is a specific placement assessment that is given to students, and it gathers data on where your child might be working, and it's similar with their decoding needs. There are also periodic mastery tests that help students, it helps teachers monitor how the students are progressing in the program, and it also helps the teacher decide if they need to go back and review something or if they could keep moving ahead, and just it's a great checkpoint for them. And student selection, how we look for students or decide who's going to be part of the intervention, getting those extra services, are based on our district literacy assessment benchmarks that we just talked about in the previous slides. If a child's not meeting those specific benchmark criteria or goals, then we would be looking at them to provide extra services for them. Next slide. And parents, I know, are always looking, I myself is always looking for ways to build literacy skills at home. Our district, what's really neat about the Into Reading program, the program is broken up into modules depending on what grade level they are. They could either be 3 to 4 weeks long. And at the beginning of every module, there is an Into Reading family letter that is sent home, and it provides just an overview of what your child might be learning during that unit, and then ways you can best support them at home. Another thing that it's a little bit of a shift, but research has shown that this is an awesome thing. It is important to let your children read the books that they are interested in. Don't worry about the levels. We're kind of moving away from the levels. I know we've been thinking about levels for a very long time, but just looking at the current research around science of reading, just getting those kiddos to read and enjoy books and just having a good time at home with them is awesome. So some ideas for things you could do together at home is you can do some shared reading. So you can read a page and your child can read a page to you. Asking questions, pointing out things, and talking about the story really build their comprehension and their background knowledge too. And encouraging your children to read aloud to anyone who wants to listen, siblings, relatives, pets. I've had stuffed animals I've read too. And then, also if they want to do some independent reading too, provide them with a quiet spot for them to read, maybe a cozy little nook. That would be fun. And then having your child self-select books of their interest, either going to the library, the Southwick has a wonderful library, going to the school library, or even a bookstore. And I also attached here additional ways to support your child's reading at home. Beth, if you can just click on the link. This is with the program, the literacy initiative that we're working with, Hill for Literacy. They have created a site, and if you could scroll down, please. There's different questions here, and it's all thinking about what your student will be talking about in reading group with their teacher, both in their classroom or with the interventionist. And if Beth, if you don't mind clicking on the last one that says my child has picked a book that is a little too hard for them. If you scroll down, it gives you some suggestions, and then there's also some little videos of tips and demonstrations and gives you a little background knowledge. So that's a really great site to check out if you want to look for more ways to support your child at home. I think that is it for me. It is Beth's turn to talk all about math.
Thank you. So I'm Beth Grady. I am the District STEM instructional coach. So talking about math, In Massachusetts, math education builds students' understanding and skills through active engagement in meaningful mathematics. The content and practice standards included in the Massachusetts math curriculum frameworks focus on developing students in the following areas: conceptual understanding, where we're making sense of math, we're reasoning about it to really understand the why does this work. The procedural skills, which are more of the calculations, knowing the math facts, being able to compute and actually do the math. And then capacity is allowing the students to have a wide range of problems so that they can apply the skills that they've learned conceptually and then procedurally to larger problems with that. So
Beth,
it's a little, yeah.
Beth, I hate to interrupt you, but you're really echoey for some reason. Your audio is a little echoey. Can you maybe try moving a little closer or something?
Yeah. Does that sound a little better?
Nope, still echoing.
Does that sound better? Further away?
No, should we pause and maybe check your audio? Don't stop, just pause. Hi, everyone, we're back. I'm sorry for the little audio mishap, so I'm just gonna start over. And Jenny and I have switched places. So I'm, again, Beth Grady. I am the district STEM instructional coach, and I'm here to talk about mathematics in our Title I schools. So mathematics in Massachusetts is really about building students' understandings of the skills through engagement. Students are talking a lot more than when probably you and I were in math class when we were younger. They're discussing, they're learning from each other and their strategies, and they have combined the frameworks to have content standards and also standards of mathematical practice. So students are building their conceptual understanding where they're making sense of math, they're reasoning about it, they're questioning whether this makes sense or not, to really understand the why math and these numbers work together and finding out the relationships with those numbers. And then they build their procedural skills, which is knowing their mathematical facts, calculating, computing, to actually do the math outright. And then with the combination of that conceptual understanding and learning the procedural skills, they're building their capacity for mathematics, where they're going to be able to solve a wide range of problems in various contexts by reasoning, thinking about it, and applying the math they have learned to those new problems that are more rigorous. So we have this triangle that really combines it to have that mathematical rigor at the center. Next slide, please. So mathematics in Powder Mill and Woodland schools. So our high quality instructional material that is used in grades K to 8 is called Illustrative Math, and it is published by Imagine Learning, which is a digital platform. Illustrative Math has been green-lighted, as we say, so it's met all the expectations by Ed Reports, which is a nonprofit evaluator of instructional materials. And like Laura had mentioned, we're currently in a literacy initiative. We had just come out of a math initiative where we had partnered with a professional development provider in college to provide really engaging content knowledge for our teachers and our administrators, while understanding and implementing those shifts, the instructional shifts to meet DESE's vision of a math classroom. So we are coming out of that initiative and applying our knowledge that we've gained to the classrooms. Next slide. So the math assessments that we do are through Illustrative Math. There are a number of formative assessments, which are assessments of, assessments for learning, and then summative assessments, which are assessments of learning. So the formative assessments give us some practice, some checkpoints almost, where the summative assessments could be considered like the unit assessments, like at the end of this topic. The summative assessments are all given on the digital platform of Imagine Learning and scored there as well. And then 3 times a year, every student in our district takes the diagnostic assessments from iReady. And each year, beginning in grade 3, students apply what they have learned throughout the year on the MCAS assessment. Next slide. So at Powder Mill in Woodland, what our mathematics intervention looks like is we follow a learning acceleration model. So what an acceleration model is it's providing students the skills they need right before they're going to use it and apply it into the unit. So no more are we doing remediation model, which is more of, let me take September and review all of the stuff that I think you may need to be successful in this year's math class. We're not doing that. We're providing the students with what they need right before they need it based on the data that we get from how the students are performing on those diagnostic assessments. So we'll take a look at that data after the students take it the 3 times a year, and we'll look at what they need. We'll look at the unit that's coming up and provide them extra practice on those skills right before they're going to use it. So for instance, if a child is struggling with adding and subtracting within 100, but the next unit is going to be that they're going to be adding and subtracting within 1,000, then we're going to kind of grab them and work with them and give them some extra practice on the adding and subtracting within 100 right before they get into that unit where they're going to have to apply that to into the thousands. Next slide, please. So how can you help at home? Be on the lookout, just like the Into Reading. Illustrative Math has unit letters that provide families with an overview of the concepts that the students will be learning in the next unit. There's some visuals also in there that explain some of the strategies that we're going to be looking for. If your child is comfortable with using that strategy, or they might have another strategy of their own. And just take a look at the world around us. Math is all around us. We are all math people because we're a person and we do math. So that makes us a math person. So talk about math that you're using and tasks that you do each day, such as cooking. There's lots of fractions in there, estimating, when you're grocery shopping, and counting. Counting is so important. I think sometimes we overlook the importance of it. Counting forwards, counting backwards, and counting from any number. So let's start at 21 and count forwards, or let's start at 21 and let's count backwards. And you can skip count too. Count by 2s, count by 5s, count by 3s, count by 6s. And then play board games or card games with your child. And there's so much math that's naturally embedded within those games. Help promote a growth mindset around math. The perseverance and having them stick with it is really, really important. And be curious about math with your child. You may ask questions such as, I wonder if that is always, sometimes, or never true. I wonder what would happen if we divided by a larger number, or what happens if we divide by a smaller number. State what you notice and ask what they notice and how they notice it. So such as if you're looking at a carton of eggs, like, oh, I noticed that there are 12 eggs and I see them as 2 rows of 6. What do you notice? And your student may say, oh, well, I see 12 eggs, but I see them as 6 groups of 2. So just that little difference to get them to see things in a different way, and that's okay. Thank you, Beth and Laura. In addition to our new math and ELA curriculum, we have some new science and history curriculum on the horizon. They're currently in development, and they're what's considered open source curriculum, which means that we don't have to pay for them. We may have to pay for some supplies, we may have to pay for some professional learning for our teachers, but these are curriculum that are currently being developed by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in coordination with curriculum developers, so that what we're getting, we know, will definitely align to our rigorous Massachusetts frameworks. So we've already begun to pilot Open SciEd in our 6 through 8 classrooms. It is a science curriculum that focuses on storyline, phenomenon-based science that really tell a story, get kids interested in things that that they notice in nature and that they wonder about. And really, the curriculum is generated or moved forward by children's own questions, so it's very engaging. Coming up a little bit farther down the road is Investigating History, which is an innovative history, social science curriculum that DESE is developing, which is designed around 4 key principles. Number 1, historical inquiry and investigation. 2, historical empathy and human connections. 3, civic engagement and current world relevance. And 4, culturally affirming pedagogies. They are currently piloting grade 5. And they are working on developing 6th and 7th grade curriculum, but the way I understand it is that over the next couple of years, they hope to stretch that down through the lower elementary grades and up through the high school grades. So stay tuned for that. Next slide, please, Beth. And that's all we have for tonight. We're going to pause the recording and take some questions and answers. I just want to thank everybody for joining us. If you were just amazed by everything you heard tonight and wish that you could share it with a friend, let them know that this recording will be posted on our website. So if anybody missed it and wants to hear all about our Title I program and all about the great things we're doing with our new core curricula in the South Oakland Granville Regional School District, they can find this recording on our webpage. Thank you and have a great night.